Here's the thing about your movie, why I made a curator's pick of the Hollywood Fringe Festival. Community, heart,
This is Like It Is Radio, Black Intelligent Talk Radio.
Nothing but the facts. It's your man Franklyn G, student Verley. And you know, sometimes just plain old F to the jizzle. But we talk about things to try to get you closer connected to what we're trying to do out here in Las Vegas. And if you want to get connected with us, it's possible. You can either check out my man right here from Lordland Films, Crazy D, who puts the video together to make it all happen. Or my man right here, CeeMo, our intergenerational connection, letting us know what's happening with the younger folks. But he makes the sound good. I just try to be out here and make it look good. So as we had been dialoguing, we got an upcoming event. We just got finished with the MLK Candlelight Vigil. That's the poster, the commemorative. If you were pretty much affiliated with it, we got your name on it. That's how we like to do things. There's several of those. As you see, we've been changing the set for you. If they've been noticing, Crazy D, what you think?
I think they should be noticing.
What do you think, CeeMo?
I think if they didn't know by now, man, they should get on it.
Well, we have been changing sets to let you know we've been doing things, keep it moving. I guess the direction we'll go in, something we were talking about, we're doing this as an addendum, a part 2, if you will, because we were going to cover something. We covered some other stuff, but Malcolm X's birthday is coming up May 19th. That's our next big event. You can go to Lordland Films and see the Dr. King Vigil that has been put down by this man right here.
Yes.
April 25th it comes out.
Our creative genius who capsulized it, visualized it, and put it on film so we can see it all. The people came out, everybody participated. It's a wonderful job. Thank you so much. Personally, Crazy D.
Oh, thank you. I'm just here to make sure that people are seen, heard, recognized, and appreciated.
You do that well. You know, me and CeeMo appreciate you, and I hope I appreciate you too, CeeMo.
Thank you, brother. You too,
Before we go there, we got to talk about CeeMo's dope hangouts. We have to talk about that. That's another one that we're doing.
Plug that.
We're on how many episodes now
dope
hangouts, isn't it?
Yes.
Siete
is 7.
Seven. Well, 7 hasn't dropped yet, so we
hasn't dropped yet. So 6 right now. Yeah, Dope Hangouts was really cool. Yeah, 6 episodes. Every single time, bring a different artist to come through, give them a platform to say what they do, let them know that we are here for you because no one's got us like us is the motto. So, man, if you're an indie artist looking for that push, looking for that first floor, that footing so you can get trained at being well in media, man, come holla at us. We got you. We'll promo you.
How to hit you?
Hit us up at www.moreofeverythingmedia.com, or you can hit us up on Instagram and Twitter with a DM at MOEX Media.
And you gonna say that both again slow, you know.
Yeah, slow.
www.moreofeverythingmedia.com. It's pretty long, huh?
That's what she said.
I tried to shorten it up.
And then, of course, we have Franklyn G with Like It Is, and also the breakdown. So tell them about that real quick.
All these things are available for you to see how we put it together, or basically how we do it, and he puts it together, makes it look good, sound good right here. Go to Lordland Films on YouTube. The Breakdown is a weekly show on Power 88 that I was pleased to create with our general manager, Craig Knight, and Mr. Sweet Lou Collins and Lady AK. A 4-panel show, 4 different views. Something that you need to check out every now and then, or every day, or every Wednesday, or whatever it is. You can get your information, your knowledge, and your education and have some fun, because we try to connect you to the community with the things that are going on. That's The Breakdown, and that's on Power 88, 88.1 KCEP FM, or just power88lv.com, because we are streaming. And then Friday is my solo forte, if you will. I try to connect you to some of the black leaders of our time through different dialogue periods of our time with proper critical analysis. Sometimes, you know, we got to be harsh on our own and think about the way forward, because without the critical analysis and dissent, we would have no creativity. Everything creative comes out of dissent. So do know that. Speaking of dissent, look at Prince, our poor brother. Mm-hmm. He thought he was getting real pills. He was getting fake pills. Now he's gone.
It's a shame.
But damn, his creative nature, not wanting to deal with the record companies, led him to do his own thing. Even though everything was purple, all kind of wild names and symbols, he didn't want to do their thing. He wanted to do his own thing.
You know, speaking of death, because my Prince and Michael died, but we're on Prince.
You mean both dope fiends? Critical analysis. Come on, it's for the kids. It's for the kids.
Put that font down there.
Don't do drugs. There. Don't even though it's 420 or just passed. Anyway, go ahead. Creative geniuses. Come on, man.
Okay. That was a good one there.
Good one,
both dope fiends. Great.
Hey, well, look, Rick James.
Yeah, but
Ray Charles.
Yeah,
Keep going. Elvis.
True that. You're right about that. Elvis, right?
That's because
Johnny Cash?
That's because they give themselves so much
Janis Joplin.
that they have to do something to relieve
Jimi
the pain.
Hendrix?
The pain. All that bitch had, all that chick had to do was roll him over and he would still be here today. But what good is it? You know, it's funny about death. Me and CeeMo were speaking on this the other day after we had finished his podcast. It's funny about death. The person, let's take Prince for instance, could play every instrument. It had business acumen, could tour, could bring pleasure to people, could play the guitar like no one else.
Few.
Well, few. I mean, they have their tricks that they do,
right.
But this guy, pure, could play any type of guitar from rhythm to lead and tear it down. And to be gone, just one day to be gone,
poof,
and it's over, and it really means nothing. When it all boils down to it, everything that's built up, when it comes to an end, it's just mind-boggling. Because I happen to be looking at the Malcolm X picture, who we're going to be speaking about right after being shot at the Audubon Ballroom.
Yep.
And he's just laying there on the stretcher, being taken across to the hospital.
Yep.
And got all the brilliance, all of the thought process, just gone, just like that. And it's over. And no matter what you believe, what happens after this, whatever you believe, what happens after this, that person to you, while you're still on this plane, is gone forever on this plane. They're never coming back to this plane. So no matter whatever you believe in, whatever the afterlife you believe, that brilliance is gone. And it's like, it really, all that you do as an individual, it really wraps up to being amounting to nothing. Really.
But no, I wouldn't say it amounts to nothing, because you know what's really interesting, the Malcolm X's, the Martin Luther Kings, the brilliance is gone, true. But what's always been mind-boggling to me, the name stays immortal. That is amazing. The name stays immortal. You never forget that person. That person gets taught on to new things. So that's why I think is the upside of that. But
all right, well, that's what we got to go with then. The upside of it. You can't look at the downside. But the intricacies is that much that Prince, Michael, the people that we were talking about earlier who had this affliction with drugs, although it didn't kill them all, it was part of their creative nature. Malcolm was taken from us by us, at our hands. Dr. King was taken by the hands of another. It wasn't so much their own downfall in doing as Prince and Michael Jackson's case, unfortunately. And there's a lot of actors and people, just regular folks, who probably suffered under the same thing. But as you look at this picture, as we segue, I guess, into what it is, this is actually, and I guess we'll hold it up, I don't know how you're going to focus it in, that's actually the last picture of Malcolm X alive. And it was May 21st in New York City, and as you can see, that big structure in the background is the Audubon Ballroom, where he was shot when he was addressing the last little bit of his followers after we had separated from him. And he was right across the street from what is the Columbia University Medical Center. I mean, it was literally right across the street. I used to go, this is part of Harlem. And in fact, that building is no longer there in the back, which you see the Audubon just above his head, all the way in the back, that big building. Columbia University owned it. They tore it down, created a medical dormitory and some other things happening on that structure. But there was a big protest. Actually, I have a brick from that building. The protest done by Al Sharpton right before they were doing it. You know, they put up those big blue retaining walls that you could kind of look through. But somehow this protest was there and the police were there. I was there. But anyway, some pushing, I guess, ensued, and this part of the wall fell down. I mean, it was amazing. You know, boom, that shit just boom, and the little dust, and the police were like right there, and then Sharpton and the guys right there, and Sharpton just said, "Let's go inside," and everybody kind of streamed in the construction site, and the police were like, you know, it was kind of like one of those New York things, but they didn't know what to do, so we're inside, and then he's like, You hear them, you have to leave, you have to disperse, you will be arrested, this and that. So then Sharpton looked over the crowd and said, take bricks. That's all we're going to have. Everybody picked up bricks. You know, it's kind of like that moment. So I picked up 2 bricks and walked out with my bricks and went home and had the brick. And my dad came by one day. I told the story. He took a brick. My mother kept the other brick. So I'm without the bricks at the Audubon Ballroom. But it brings us to the thing with Malcolm, as I said. Even with Dr. King's, we just recognized his assassination date on April 4th, as we're going to celebrate Malcolm's birthday, not his assassination date. His assassination date is the 21st of February. It's cold. It's in New York. In fact, the church that he couldn't find a church to be buried in. The mosque wouldn't have him. The larger black churches, even Abyssinian, which was under Wyatt T. Walker, or Canaan, you know, I mean, it was under Butts. And these big churches, you know, even my Convent Avenue Baptist Church, huge structures, beautiful Chapel of Intercession. These are beautiful churches within Harlem. Nobody would take his remains. Not so much remains. They had to have the service there. There were fear of violence. But there was one building, which is, I have a picture of it. I have to go to my Like It Is radio page. Every time I go to New York, I walk by. It was right there on 147th between Broadway and Amsterdam. And it was a small chapel. It could only really see about 300 people. And it had big cross in front of it and childs. But now the facade is still there, but the building's destroyed. But in any event, the point where Malcolm is, we separated from him. He loved us so much. That's one of the phrases in the Ossie Davis eulogy that he's delivered. And you've seen it probably in Spike Lee movies. Our Black Shining Prince. So I recently was blessed from our good friend who has a publication here in Las Vegas under the title of The Urban Voice. I appreciate Joseph and all the hard work he does in our community. This gentleman is allowing us to have information spread through his publication. Some would question why he's doing it. Some would say, I don't want to deal with that. But at the same time, he's providing an outlet for us to get our information and disseminate it properly without any fear or judgment, while maybe making some advertising dollars. He may not look like many members of the community, but I believe he's providing a community service.
And why not make those dollars?
Why not? If you're financing, look at the revolution. Somebody's financing our NAACP. They get grants from other places. Urban League, Black Democrats, this and that. Different publications. Y'all may go to the y'all bought Essence, right?
Essence is no longer white owned.
But it was, though, and we didn't stop buying it.
Yes, people did.
No, they did.
Yes, they did.
I got 700 copies in my bathrooms all through this house. My wife got Essence going out the wazoo.
Well, I can tell you
and she's the most progressive
more
black
of
woman.
a majority did stop taking it.
All right,
yes,
well, I don't know, but Essence, while it was owned, black women still didn't abandon it, to my belief. Okay? All right. We're still going to Starbucks. That's a whole different thing.
Now wait. Before we get on Malcolm and potential maiming or death at the hands of police officers. This wasn't at the hands of police officers.
This was taking him over.
Yeah, right. Let's talk about Starbucks for a minute.
Well, what? You didn't know why people don't want you sitting in their living room?
Yeah. First, let's tell a story, Crazy D. Go ahead and explain the situation going on right now with it.
Well, 2 guys walk into a coffee shop.
Mm-hmm.
Does it always have to be about race?
Yes. Come on, man. When you say 2 guys, they may think it was 2 white guys. When it's black, the news lets you know it was a black man. See, the wind just blew. The wind knows. On the news, when you hear them say the description is a man 12 feet tall, he's white. If they say the description is a black man 6 feet tall, you know who they looking for.
No. The reason why I said guy or guys is because of the fact that whenever you watch white comedies and they have a black guy, they always say, "Oh, he's the black guy." So when I say guy, then you know what I'm talking about. So 2 guys walk into a coffee shop. One sits down. One asks to use the restroom. The woman says, "You can't use the restroom unless you purchase anything, purchase something." The black guy who asked to use the restroom sits back down, and they begin to wait for whoever they're waiting for. Third party. The woman comes over. The woman comes from behind the counter and says, "Would you like me to start something for you? Like Like I didn't know that Starbucks had
servers now.
Yeah, I didn't.
They
Baristas.
don't.
I didn't know that they had baristas that
They don't.
you know just came over and asked you and would bring stuff to the table. I didn't know that. Had waitresses and all that. I didn't know that.
They call your name.
Yeah. They call your name and you come up again. You
I've
sit
been
back
there
down.
once or twice.
Yeah. We
Got a
won't be going back. But anyway, so so they tell her politely, I might add, that we're just waiting for someone before we order anything. We're waiting. You know, plenty of people do it. So she goes and she takes it upon herself. It was only 2 minutes from the time that she spoke to them to when she had called the police. The call came in, and they were there lickety split to talk to these two people. She said that they were basically trespassing. They weren't buying anything, and they were basically trespassing. Wow. So the police come in. Now, when you watch the videotape, you know, they said the commissioner, the police commissioner, who is a black man,
yes,
said that they did nothing wrong.
They followed procedure.
They followed procedure.
The complaint was filed.
Did nothing wrong.
They didn't do anything wrong. The complaint was filed. They responded to the complaint.
But just last night,
he apologized. He said
he apologized
I don't
because
think it was
he
an apology.
was unaware that Starbucks, you don't have to necessarily buy anything. You can just sit in there for hours at a time
and use the Wi-Fi.
Using the Wi-Fi. You don't have to buy anything. He was unaware.
But the complaint was still made, and the police are bound by the complaint that they respond to.
However,
they can choose to overlook it, but these two men were detained for over 8 hours.
Okay, wait. But it's the way it sets up. It's the way that 5 police officers.
That's the norm.
Okay, 5 police officers. I've seen white so-called trespassers, and I've seen 1 or 2 cops come up and talk to that person. But when it was 2 black guys, I could see 4 cops, but we had 6 cops.
It's obvious that you don't know police protocol. Anything over 1 is a riot. Send the force.
No.
Anything over 1 is a problem.
No.
It's on the laws. Because even in New York, you know, they could a congregation of 3 or more Negroes constitute a law in New York.
See, that's exactly what I'm getting to. See, ever since Rodney King got beat, I have a belief that an average white person who has a bigoted or racist mentality sees 1 black man and thinks that he sees 12 people.
Oh, yeah.
And when they see 1 sister, the way that they treat a black woman, they take her out, slam her head onto the concrete, onto the street. I swear that they see 24 people when they see 1 black woman. So, as they came in,
that's the new man.
As you watch the videotape, you see the 1 police officer moving the chair out the way, like
getting ready,
like as if there were going to be some tables being moved.
Furniture move. That's what we do here.
Right. So they were coming in, and to me, it looked intimidating. If I was sitting there, I stand 6'4", and 6 white police officers, non-melanated people, come in and they're standing over me, telling me that I need to leave, and I can neither express my side, and they're automatically standing me up and cuffing me. I am in dire fear at that point for my life at the hands of 6 police officers. So I can just imagine what the 2 gentlemen were feeling at that moment.
Well, that's where compliance becomes important. So they complied and they're able to live through this. What could have been,
you know why they lived? Because their white business partner walked in.
Well, and some white people had also
videotaped and they were
videotaping it. So there goes into the complicity again. Some, they're not all bad. Some people just recognize injustice.
They just won't have you living next door to them in their neighborhood, but they're not all bad.
Well, you probably pay more for your house, and if you're a star, it'll increase the value of their house when they move out. So look at it that way.
So anyway, so that's the whole story on that. But that in this society,
happens everywhere.
No, but in this society today, you can have 1 bigot, 1 racist, 1 eugenicist, 1 white supremacist working at a place, and it will change the whole destiny of 1 or 2 or maybe 6 or maybe 10 black people's lives in 1 second through 1 phone call. Because you realize in this society today, when you make the call to the police, they're coming
Full
on
force.
the prime directive of the Paddy Roller,
Mm-hmm.
and they're coming to mash and destroy, somehow find a way to put you behind bars to have you become inmate number 572, 377. Somehow they're trying to figure out, either they're going to put you behind bars to drop your population, or they're going to have an excuse to shoot you to end your population.
But this is the nature of police. Come on, that's what it is.
So when the black police commissioner says they did nothing wrong, I agree with him.
They followed policy.
They did nothing wrong because the policy is of the Paddy Roller.
Well,
And that's what it is.
search and
Would you
destroy.
agree with that?
Search and destroy. But at the same time, you recognize they followed protocol because 2 Negroes require 6.
Tell them what a Paddy Roller is.
Well, the Paddy Roller, it's Paddy Wagon, which was in primarily, and even if you see these uniforms that these police officers in New York used to wear, were similar, and the badge that they have was similar to the early slave catchers of the day. And the Paddy Wagon, a lot of officers and slave catchers were Irish. These large coats, as you see with the badge, that's where it came from. They had a badge that said slave catcher. For whatever reason, in the early part of American history, large amounts of Irish became slave catchers. Large amount of Irish within the confines of major cities like Boston and New York and Philadelphia and Chicago they were Irish. They were
trying to gain their citizenship.
Took on a risky job, and they had what was called the truck that they used in Ireland to pick up the drunks. And they brought that truck over in the same design, which is an early stagecoach and that kind of thing. They called it the Paddy Wagon. Load them up, McHenry. Put them on the Paddy Wagon. You've seen that phrase, and that's what they do, and that's how they roll out now when they have these assault vehicles that are now modern-day Paddy Wagons that they use here in the MLK parade to break down your house, and the one with the tank on it. So, let me stop. But in any event,
the brutality that they used on runaway slaves, who were actually human beings, was accepted, but it was brutal.
Yes,
it was extremely brutal. So when the police chief says, the police commissioner in Philadelphia says that they did nothing wrong, they exactly did nothing wrong because they are following the policies of the Paddy Roller, and that's what we have to get down to. The police are to serve and protect property owners.
But that's what came out of police policy. They came to enforce policy,
which is to serve and protect
businesses and property
for the good owners,
for the good of all.
Property owners. So who in this scenario was property?
Property owners were white men.
Yeah, but who were the property
that they owned were Negroes and horses and cattle and
so
livestock.
Thus, when she called on the phone and she said these 2 Negroes are trespassing their property, they came to protect the property owner and take away the runaway property. So when he says they did nothing wrong, he is exactly right, and he shouldn't apologize because he is in the system and he follows the policy of the Paddy Roller.
I thought that was going to go another direction. But
well, no denial on that. The system is just such that that's where all that came from.
We have another prop here, don't we?
Oh, yeah, well, we'll get to that.
We'll get to that.
That's at the end.
Because he said, kill the Paddy Roller. But anyway, so listen here. So we're talking about Malcolm. So we spoke on death here. We kind of tied that in. That was something that he was fighting against even in his time about police, even taking the United States to the United Nations.
Right.
Trying to. And almost getting there before something unfortunate happened.
For this assassination
happened. So let's get to this because many people believe that members of the Nation of Islam had something to do with this.
Well, two members of the Nation of Islam, a few members, in fact, were convicted of his murder, of his assassination. They were the ones that the police caught that came out that did have guns that was at the location, the Audubon Ballroom, that may have discharged weapons into the body of Malcolm X. Maybe complicit with NYPD, the FBI, and all kinds of stuff. DeGregor would tell you that he wasn't shot by the police because the bullets entered in this fashion and he was
It
below
wasn't
them.
shot. Wasn't shot by the nation. Was shot by police who had already
been in the
cased the joint.
rafters, and they built a whole new end of the building.
And they shot him downward.
Correct. So they were the setup to do that. In fact, they said that their guns may have even been blank because the guns were never retrieved. The ballistics weren't done to see that the same bullets that entered Malcolm were the bullets that were emanated from that gun.
Which still wraps back around to the Paddy Roller and their policy. But let's rewind back a year or maybe two. Let's go back to when
at the time he was assassinated.
Right before that. Let's go back to when he leaves the nation and why he decided to depart the Nation of Islam.
Well, as it reported at that time, because we got to look at the context of 1968. We are now 2018. It wasn't even 68. That was Dr. King's assassination. It was 64. I'm believing, if I'm correct. But in any event, if you look at the paradigm that we live under now, Malcolm had a falling out with the Nation of Islam leadership. He had a falling out, in fact, with the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, the person who started on these shores the Nation of Islam, under his conception that he was a messenger as led by Master Farad Muhammad, and was here to save the American black man by delivering him from Christianity and other things of that nature, to incorporate his own self-being, self-worth within a nation unto his own.
Okay. So let's unpack that for a little bit.
All right.
First of all, let him know who his teacher was.
Master Farad Muhammad?
Yes.
Kind
of tell him who he was to him.
As I said, when we say him, these are just things maybe always open for interpretation and learning. So nothing is in stone here, and we're not talking about these things to play anybody down, to push the Nation of Islam out. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad, the work that he's done on Master Farad Muhammad. They've done great works within the community and organizations that they sustained and brought forth here. We're examining now with a different context of 2018.
In translation, because
we know more.
In translation, because Franklyn often talks in collegiate terms. Let's break it down. We mean no harm in discussing facts that are already known to the public. We're just re-examining and expressing for the next generations who may not know or have an understanding of what happened in the past. Here we are. To know where you're going, you have to know the past. Continue.
And try to accept some facts that we now know. So Mr. Master Farad Muhammad, as he was termed by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, came to him, and they understood together they wanted to change the concept. There's thoughts that he came from another place, whether it's Turkey, whether it's the Indian Judah. The bottom line is he came with some interfaith believings and doctrine that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and I say that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, was able to bring forth and develop within the confines of the black community for the most part in America. Okay. Even though he may have been financed, as you know, by a Texas millionaire, because they did talk with some folks. We're just explaining it all, trying to just give you the bones.
Okay, so let's
you can
break
put the
down,
meat on it later.
So let's break down to the people what you meant, or what they meant by at the time of freeing black people from the grips of Christianity.
The mental bondage that the African man was the original man, the giver of life to the earth and things of that nature, and that Islam was his gift to the black man. And even though that now we may see Arabs as the true Islamic believers, or the one practicing the faith for the large part, Islam is what he was saying was developed on the shores of Africa, and it was for the confines of the African American man to learn the true nature of himself and to accept the responsibility to build a nation within a nation.
And that the bondage was looking at the image of Michelangelo's brother,
a white man,
as Jesus,
right.
And thus, if you look at this person, then you look at someone who is oppressing you, you wouldn't necessarily raise your hand to the person that's oppressing you, because that person is actually to you God, psychologically, because you see this image of God, and that's how they psychologically not only mentally enslaved us, but physically enslaved us with this image.
With the passivity also at that time of Dr. King in the beginning of that era, and just recognizing that the Christian faith at that time was more of let's get along, let's not be rebellious, let's maybe not create the image of Jesus, because as we know, Jesus was a rebel. He went into the temples, he went into the
synagogue.
The synagogue, turned the tables over. He talked about the growth and the prosperity of many while the suffering of the masses. So in any event, Malcolm became a great follower, a student of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. In fact, maybe some would say his best student or his number one student.
His best fisher.
Well, all of that. So at some point they had a disenfranchisement or disbelief.
Fisher is something that Malcolm came up with to go out to the masses, and instead of waiting for them to come into the temple,
Correct.
you go out and spread your word. Kind of like when a Jehovah's Witness come knocks on your door, and you often, like I often did, slam. But anyway, that's another story.
You better get that watchtower in the weight, man. Those little white Jesus pamphlets.
But anyway, so to go out and fish and bring people in, to cast the net and bring people in.
And as we celebrate his birthday, May 19th, here in Las Vegas at our all-day event, we'll show some of his historical stuff. It's happening at the West Las Vegas Arts Center and the library. We got, to end the night, we're going to hear from Professor Dr. Leonard Jeffries. He taught the baddest class on Malcolm X in the City College of New York, and I could never get into that class. It was always filled. Even when you went there pre-registration day, first day, you had to go try to get an add-on into his class. There were always 20 people in line when you got to the class to try to get an add-on. But in any event, we'll be having a full day celebrating Malcolm, so we're looking at it in a different context in 2018.
May 19th. Now let's continue with the split between Malcolm X and the nation.
It started to fray as many of the other leaders of the nation started to become envious of Malcolm's placement. It also didn't help when Malcolm X uttered some words after the president of the United States was assassinated, and he said, now is the time when the chickens have come home to roost, outspoken against President Kennedy after the Nation of Islam ministers had been instructed not to say anything. It wasn't a good look, so it was able to blow out proportion, but that allowed Malcolm to travel and go to Mecca and develop a whole new concept.
First, Elijah Muhammad called for the censorship.
For 30 days.
For 30 days, and then after, and he sat quiet for the 30 days, but then the 30 days went to 60 days, and the 60 days went to 90 days, and then there was no response, and he couldn't get in contact with,
being cut off,
and he was being cut off. So he said, this seems like this is over. Then something happens that changes the whole aspect before he starts to travel.
Well, Wallace D. Muhammad, as the story is reported to us, and we know now, came to Malcolm and said, perhaps we need to figure out how to move what was the leader of the movement away based on the fact of these things that his own son had become aware of with the leader of the Nation of Islam.
Which were?
Unfortunately, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad may have had some indiscretions, sexual of nature, that produced babies in some of his support staff or some of the young followers. Age not being a determinant, but now, because we know more, some of them may not have been teenagers, but nevertheless, they were faithful, the followers, and the employed by the Nation of Islam at the time. Subordinate.
Okay, so pause for a minute. Let's go to CeeMo for a minute. So now, you have this person that you look up to that basically you were in prison at the time, and his words enlightened you to the point that you come out, and then you come out and you meet this man, and you're his faithful servant. You're his best fisher that goes out and brings people in. Then all of a sudden, because a person of non-melanated complexion is murdered at the hands in Dallas, Texas, then you're censured because you spoke out when they said that you shouldn't speak out. And then the 30 days go 6 days, 90 days, and then nothing, and you can't get in contact with them. And then you get this information about transgressions. He's a married person, and there's supposed to be certain morals and guidelines of being this particular Nation of Islam Muslim, and you get all this, and it all hits you like that, and it's his son bringing it to you. What would you do before we continue the story?
Well, first of all, that would seem like like that. All right, good. First of all, I think that situation, what I would do in that situation is definitely try to make the best out of it, take what resources I still have, and come back and do it my way. That's honestly
what you mean, do it your way?
What I was supposed to do from the beginning. That you said that 60 days turned into 90 days, and definitely that. I don't know.
Go ahead, continue.
I'm trying to rekindle the story that you guys all the information you guys just gave me. I'm trying to bring it all in my head. So I don't know the information to answer the question correctly. I'm just hearing it now.
That's the issue.
I'm just hearing it now. So
because that's the issue. That's what happened to
Malcolm.
Malcolm.
That's the issue.
What? Like,
that's the issue. What would you do with that information? Your spiritual leader has
shit.
been found
to be deceitful.
to be deceitful, and you have been censured, basically quieted. You stayed quiet for 30 days and nothing, 60 days nothing, 90 days nothing,
Get right back to
120
work.
days.
Get right back.
Oh, get back to work
Get
in
right
what way?
back to work. See, that's the thing. If I was censored and shunned off, get back to work and take what resources I have, take the connects I still have, and start a new platform. It's the best way I can say it. Start a new platform.
Malcolm-
Pause.
Mm-hmm.
Let's continue with the story.
That's what Malcolm. There you go.
Okay. So we're getting it from the youth.
Yes.
Stay tuned, people.
That's right.
Because
Buckle up.
we're getting it from the youth. There was no doubt on that. He had the answer the first time,
Mhm.
but he had to fumble around and say, "I don't understand the question." It was really he said, "You nigga," he's like, "Fuck you, nigga. I'm going to do this." But anyway,
Where's my
so
template
let's
at?
continue.
Where's my template?
So pause 1 minute. We'll come back to you. Continue the story. That was very good because what happens?
What happens is, just as this thoughtful person did, and just as you and I would do, if we had been led by somebody and we found out that there were certain allegations about their lack of faithfulness or fortitude to the word that they prescribe to us, which happens in any organization or even in families, you do the investigation. So Malcolm went out to investigate this claim that was being kept from him because he was in New York and in Chicago, two different factions. And as you know, within the nation, as any organization, things happen at different franchises, like what happened at Starbucks. It could happen at anyone, but it could happen at some, it could happen at none, but they're all different. So in any event, Malcolm did the research and went out and found that these allegations against the Honorable Elijah Muhammad about having out-of-wedlock children was true. And also that these persons at that time had been pushed out or left or whatever, how you want to say it. I can't say pushed out because we know nobody was there, but they do have those children who are now still alive. But in some way, shape, or form,
In today's world, it would be called baby mama drama.
well, it would be called out of wedlock from a man who they know was much their senior, who from a man they know was basically their employer, and a man who they know had spiritual as well as consensual advice over them. So it's kind of like, using your power, if you will, because now you could be brought up on charges in the office for those kind of things.
Today
Under this, because of the concept we have of what it is that
Me
abuse.
Too.
And that could be considered abuse. You used your
Time's
power.
up.
And same thing, Harvey Weinstein did it, and a lot of people. You say even Al Franklin, and even our own senator here, Mr. Reuben Kewen, who was considered a great rising star, who unfortunately was a little maybe too familiar or comfortable, but there were women who felt uncomfortable with his sexual advances. And all of these men I've just named, with the exception of pretty much even Jesse Jackson was brought to bear for having an out-of-wedlock child. All of these people, now as we look at that concept, say the person, usually the man, who used his base of power, conceived, realized, or not realized, used that power to force or complicitly, or I don't want to say, individuals to do things they would not have done had this individual been not the same person that offered something over their contract, their employment, their choice of life. So that would be considered quid pro quo. So here we have it. Let's go back to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. There were women who have claimed that Malcolm had found out that he did, in fact, bring life forth with them, unbeknownst to his family and wife, which is a moral thing if you're supposed to be this minister, right? Just facts, not putting right down, but if you're supposed to be leading the flock, because we know that we have many ministers who have charges against them who are leading the flock that have all kind of sexual charges against them. So that's not something conducive or conducting to being a religious leader, okay? And then equally as important.
Wait. Hold it though. Hold it though.
Plenty
of the prophets in the Bible did transgressions. So what did David do? He looked down on Bathsheba and said, "I'm gonna have Bathsheba."
Right.
And he put Bathsheba's husband on the front line to get killed. Had Bathsheba, had children, and.
But all right, so when you look at David and Bathsheba, that whole thing played out to kind of similar, because as much as when the king did have relationship, he brought him back, and David, wouldn't have relations with his wife. He would not go in the house. He stayed at his doorstep based on the fact that the king had told him what had happened. So he shamed the king, and then the king sent him to his death. But then ultimately, did not Bathsheba or David marry her? Didn't the king marry her and bring her in the house? Didn't Solomon have 1,000 wives? He brought them into the fold of the family. I'm not saying that doing that was wrong, and I understand that maybe the messenger, as it has been relayed to us, he was doing that as he considered himself David, or like Moses, like Solomon, increasing his flock. If that was true, you bring them in the house, you marry them, you treat them with the rights and royalties that they deserve, which was later corrected by the minister, Louis Farrakhan, after much consideration. And now we know, as you go forward in life, you learn something. He brought them back in. He gave them the things that he thought was popular for them to have, and gave them the rights, I believe, in some of the royalties that they may have lost out on during this turbulent time. But the damage was already done. Malcolm and the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, because Malcolm outed this information on Dan Rather, a white dude with CBS News in the public.
Okay, so pause for a minute. So he went to the white media,
Right.
who had just done a special maybe a year before about
Him and everybody.
black Muslims, the Nation of Islam.
Right.
Right.
He's done a couple, because there was the hate that hate produced. There was that was a CBS thing, and that was 59, early Malcolm. And then behind that, there was also Make It Plain. Also, these are productions that are newsworthy. They were done by news organizations under the same growth and understanding of the time.
So he went there.
He had
and
to go
then
there.
Someone or some people got angry at him exposing
Right.
the leader.
Well, but then again, is this an exposition or is this a dialogue in truth? If we look at it in 2018, as I said, the nation, it was different. We're more conceptualized, understanding, and hopefully compassionate. If you'd have found out that a senior man at this day and age was having babies leading this organization, first off, the tabloids would have got him. The tabloids would have ordered that, but no fanfare or nothing. So that would have removed Malcolm from the entity of having done that. But would we have sided with him in terms of, as this country did, or his followers did? They sided with the Honorable Elijah Muhammad when a man who they know was revered to them led them to understanding the man that we had the most faith in was deceitful to us by producing life, and then not taking that life and that responsibility that goes behind it, and being the man that we thought he was, and making those children his children, and being a father to the child.
Okay,
so we
let's
didn't
pause.
side. We didn't side with him. But would you side with him now, knowing that?
Let's pause and let's go back to the young stallion here. New question.
New question.
The other side of the coin. This is your leader. He hasn't censured you. You're living pretty well. You're learning how to garden. You're learning how to fish. You're learning how to sustain yourself through economics. He rose you up from being a drug dealer or a pimp or you were a hooker or whatever. I'm just on the women's side,
had
right?
a big
On the women's
impact
side,
on my
right?
life, yeah.
He had a big impact on your life. And here's this guy who goes on national TV. You're fighting against the white devil. And here's this man who was censured for not following your leader's thing, your leader's prescriptions. And he goes on and exposes your leader like this. You have no knowledge of this, or you would choose not to believe it because he has done good by you. What would you do?
That would go into, if I lose some respect for him, if I stop my respect for him, I would definitely need a conversation with my mentor. Be like, look, I need the truth. I need it all right now, and make my decision off that. I would want to talk to my mentor, and the guy who's blasting my mentor. I can get one side of the story from my mentor. I can get the side of the story from him as well. So a lot of factors that go into that. I would talk to my mentor first and foremost. If I hear, that's how I put it in life. If I hear somebody say something about somebody that I know, I'm going and talking to them first. I'm like.
I think he provided that, but it was kind of blocked by the ministers that were surrounding themselves at the time.
So that's the point.
They wouldn't allow you access.
So pretty much, you couldn't get it right because you're not
the inner circle.
You're not the inner circle. You're there, but you're a faithful.
Wow.
No, you're a faithful believer. You don't believe what Malcolm said.
Or
what would you do?
That's hard. If I can't get near him, that's hard. I'd see what kind of moves he makes from here on out.
But do realize at that time that the CIA and other organizations were definitely investigating Malcolm. They were following him around as he traveled. And also at that time, he had adopted a different philosophy of Pan-Africanism, understanding that we're all suffering from the same thing, from the same person, and because of the same reason. It's not about Baptist. It's not about Muslim. It's about you being black. So recognizing he had a new doctrine, who also said, I'm willing to work with those who want to work with me. He started another organization, the AA,
The Organization of African Unity.
Right. Of course, we have Baba Small here, who was definitely part of that. We're glad to have his time. But he tried those mechanisms, and he had to use the only vehicle to get his message out there, as you would know. Ebony didn't really buffer up to him too much. Our own black people didn't buffer up to him.
Alex Haley kind of buffered up to him.
Yeah, but we didn't start reading that book till 10 years after it was done for those of the conscious, and every now and then it has a resurgence. And Alex Haley was important in his life, and we're going to also hear from one of the ladies who worked with Alex Haley, Ida Brantley, at our Malcolm X Day event, May 19th, here at the West Las Vegas Library Theater and the West Las Vegas Arts Center. We're having a full day of Malcolm, Saturday, May 19th, 2018. But the reality is, back to that, those who would now look at that and say this is a tragedy of a person using their personal placement, power, or objectivity over women, and we would have exposed that, or you thought that it would have been exposed and people would have sided with him. We didn't side with Malcolm. They sided against Malcolm for what happened. Well, black people did this. I'm stepping back. That's a Nation of Islam thing.
Which allowed him then to travel, like you said, go over to Mecca, and then
come back and deserve the title of I can't even say it now. I'm getting all messed up. El Malik al-Shabazz. I mean, El Hajj Malik al-Shabazz, which means he's made Hajj, which means he's gone back to Mecca and done the walk around and done the things, whatever it would, to lead you to a higher understanding of Islam.
And as he was organizing the Organization of African American Unity, he was shot down.
Right?
Shot down in the Audubon Ballroom on February 21st.
Right. But I mean, as he was building the organization, he was constant death threats came from Nation of Islam.
They firebombed his home.
Right, and they also threatened his life several times in his home.
We're not saying that the nation did it.
Well, it could have been the nation, it could have been the CIA. It's just undue stress.
Yeah.
Undue stress for a man who exposed something which I would look at now, and I recognize what the Honorable Elijah Muhammad has done, and his organization has done, and the fruit of it, all of that. But still, this was a man who may have used his placement or power or perch and afforded himself some sexual favors from people under his influence, under whatever thing, quid pro quo. We know now those things are wrong. Women have put up with that stuff all kinds of days. And even now we say, yeah, you go to your waitress, they show, they got to act more sexual to you to earn a tip. So we demean women at all points. And here's a case where we would look at this, and if it was a white woman, as we know with Harvey Fierstein and all these great actresses who said, he made me play with the three-piece orchestra. He made me do these things so that I would get a role. He understood that if I didn't, I felt that I was under some duress. We would look at that and we would side with the victims of the persons who were set upon. So especially when it's a religious leader. So we have to look at it in the context. As I said, Malcolm loved us so much. He was willing to expose the man who created him due to the deceits that he felt and expose him. So that's a lot. That's a lot. That's a whole lot. It's not even in the case of Judas, where you say he exposed Christ. He did it for profit. He did it to gain something. Malcolm, in his love for us, decided to expose the man who had created him in hopes that we would understand. And in today's context, we know we didn't stand with him, nor did the nation stand with him. In fact, it led to his demise and ultimately his death.
So pause that right there. And to learn more, you're going to have to come out May 19th.
Oh, yes.
You're going to come out May 19th to Living Legacy Malcolm X at the West Las Vegas Arts Theater.
Arts Center
and Theater. Tell them more.
We got a whole day planned. We're going to have some prayer in the morning. We got some Indian shamans coming out. We're trying to make this another interfaith, interdenominational, intergenerational moment. If you didn't know Malcolm and you want your kids to know him, you'll have an opportunity to come out. We're going to have some spoken word, some songs, some dances, all happening at the West Las Vegas Arts Center to start at 10 a.m. May 19th. It's 947 West Lake Mead Boulevard. They have an amphitheater. We'll be out there with the kids. We're going to have some stuff going on. Hopefully some city proclamations. We're trying to reach our new people who recently got elected. And then we're going to go inside the library to the conference room and watch some films on Malcolm. And then we're going to break for lunch, and then we're going to come out, have an afternoon program again with Miss Just Flow, some of the spoken words names. I'm not even going to tell you all the folks we got going on. And we'll have a little bit more entertainment outside, and then show another film about Malcolm from Like It Is Radio, Gil Noble, a great product. We will be showing those. This is all for free. Then we're going to take a night break and come back. We will have another round of Malcolm, if you will. Of course, We're going to be showing part 2, hopefully, of the Smithsonian Channel, Malcolm, the Lost Tapes, a new production I was just able to get my hands on, and we didn't even really need the rights to it because it's all news. So we got the rights, though, anyway. We're going to show that. Then we're going to have Miss Ida Brantley talking to us, who worked with Dr. Alex Haley on his book Roots and some of the stuff she knew about the relationship between Malcolm and Alex Haley. And then we have Baba, Dr. Leonard Jeffries, the preeminent historian, master teacher who taught the class in Harlem at City College in New York for over 12 years under his program, 3 times a year, spring, fall, and summer. We got him. I was connected to him through the other people I've taken class with. I've taken other one of his classes. But you could never get into that Malcolm class. Dr. Jeffries is an installed chief. He was a leader of so many things in New York that changed the curriculum by changing it and saying we need to have the curriculum of inclusion. So this will be a full day of Malcolm X.
And this is one class to keep you from being like this guy right here.
Because we got a lot of
Django Unchained.
It's the Django. And that's the Stephen dog.
Yeah, that's right, that's right. So you don't have to be like him. The more you learn,
yes,
the less you have to be this guy right here. So stay tuned with that. And what you got to say, CeeMo?
This was amazing. Amazing history. And I'm coming to this event May 19th, you said?
May 19th, his birthday.
Living Legacy, Malcolm X, his birthday, man. Yo, you guys got to get out there. Like, you got to check it out. The history that I'm learning today, man, is just a piece of what's going to be told. I can't wait to see the speakers, and I can't wait to watch the movies. It's a free event, y'all. So come through May 19th, and let's get learning, man. Let's get learning.
And it will be covered by Lordland Films. So come out and learn, and you won't have to be like this guy. So stay tuned.
I mean, you could end up like him. Maybe
you probably could end up like him. I met someone like that out here when I was having an event at a Clark County Library, and I tell you. But anyway, that's a whole nother story for another time. Take us out, Franklyn.
Yes.
You got to celebrate your blackness. You got to get this nourishment and education and knowledge. Lordland Films is being courteous enough to help us put it down. CeeMo's kind of making it happen with the sound and talking to the young upcoming artists. It's an intergenerational thing, little by little. If everybody stays in their lane and produces, revolution time, as Malcolm would say, we need everybody. We need knives, forks, but we do need spoons too. So in order not to become
this guy,
check us out. Because you know that's where the information is. It's what you know that will sustain you in the times that you have fear about who you are. It will sustain you. All about knowledge. Malcolm was all about knowledge. CeeMo's all about knowledge.
That's what I mean.
Crazy D is the knowledge, and he's putting it down. This is how we do it. We were just putting it down. It's nothing but the facts. This is why we put it out. If you want to get involved, we want you involved. This is how we do. See you May 19th, Malcolm X 2018. Maybe we need to look at our concepts a little differently. While we do appreciate all the hard work and everything the Honorable Elijah Muhammad has done under his leadership, created a great organization that sustains the black community, we appreciate it. But maybe we sided with the wrong guy in this instance. No man was without mistakes. I'm not saying that he was the worst, but this mistake needs to be recognized, because if Malcolm didn't do it, for the love that he had of us, who would have done it? Nothing but the facts.
This is Like It Is Radio, Black Intelligent Talk Radio.